पियोसम ग्रातम च पिका पियोसम ग्रातम च चमौटी मुख मंजितम ओर प्रात लापेल च नापा कपा विवर्जितम। उनके मजाकिया स्वभाव का एक नमूना है, उनके ऑब्जर्वर होने का एक नमूना है। मतलब ये कि केवल शिक्षकों को नहीं, समाज से भी उनका निकट का संबंध था। आज उनके जीवन से संबंधित पत्रिका के लोकार्पण के अवसर पर इंद्रधनुष परिषद, विशेषकर मेरे मित्र रामशरण जी ने मुझे मंच पर आमंत्रित किया, प्रोफेसर साहब से संबंधित 2-1 घटनाएं सुनाने का अवसर दिया। इसके लिए मैं इंद्रधनुष सांस्कृतिक परिषद का, भाई रामशरण का और आपने ध्यानपूर्वक मुझे सुना, आप सबका आभार मानता हूँ।
Thank you, Mata Badilji, for your interesting speech and rich with humorous anecdotes. I now invite Mr. Ivo Martial, Director of Ivo Martial and Associate and Associate Editor Indradhanush, to address you. We thank Mr. Martial for his presence and constant support and dedication to ISP.
Je suis trop contestataire pour respecter le protocole. Aussi, avec votre permission, contestataire, mais avec l'approbation du peuple, de l'assistance, bien sûr. Je vais d'abord saluer la présence parmi nous, présence particulièrement réconfortante de M. Pahlad Ramsurrun. Ensuite, je voudrais célébrer la présence parmi nous de la fille du professeur Prakash et de son époux, M. Raj Sital Singh, toute leur famille, parce que vous perpétuez la présence de Ram Prakash dans ce pays béni des dieux qu'est Maurice. Merci. Je vais saluer la présence du ministre, M. Chouni, des Arts et de la Culture. Il nous fait un très grand sacrifice d'être présent parmi nous, parce qu'aujourd'hui, là, actuellement, il aurait dû être sur le terrain dans sa circonscription. Un grand sacrifice, c'est pour ça qu'il regarde-le de temps en temps. Surtout depuis qu'il me voit devant le micro. Merci de votre présence, de votre soutien. Un autre grand sacrifice que nous fait l'ambassadeur, le haut-commissaire de l'Inde à Maurice. Normalement, il aurait dû être dans son pays, la grande péninsule, mais il a accepté d'être le représentant de cette grande nation parmi nous, et nous apprécions votre présence parce que avec vos collaborateurs vous perpétuez le travail bénéfique commencé parmi nous par le professeur Ram Prakash. Je voudrais aussi saluer cette équipe admirable qui est celle de l'Indradhanush Shankriti Parishad, qui année après année se fait le devoir de publier un nouveau numéro trilingue de la revue Indradhanush. Et le fait que je m'exprime en français ajoute cette dimension francophone dans cette revue trilingue. Seulement, à la différence de mes prédécesseurs orateurs, eux, ils peuvent parler des 3 langues, moi, je ne peux parler que le français. Donc, je vous présente mes excuses pour mon intelligence limitée. Cette revue Indradhanush, l'enfant de Pahlad Ramsurrun, sa fille est là, je ne peux pas dire que c'est son enfant préféré, mais vous savez vous-même, tout ce temps qu'il a passé dedans, pour sortir chaque numéro. Cette revue Indradhanush, c'est un monument. Et chaque nouveau numéro, c'est une nouvelle pierre de taille que nous ajoutons à ce monument, qui année après année prend de la hauteur, de la grandeur, et surtout nous est utile. Je ne suis pas journaliste pour rien, donc je vais vous révéler un scoop. Monsieur Pahlad Ramsurrun entre ces jours-ci dans sa 78e année. Il y a eu une petite alerte médicale. Il n'avait pas prévu ça, parce que lui, tout il réfléchit très bien. Et ben là, il va faire attention. Nous aussi, on pensait que c'était une citadelle inattaquable. Mais là, il y a un petit peu de pierre là qui commence à bouger. Il faudra mettre un peu de ciment. Vous n'en faites pas. 78 ans, cela signifie surtout que M. Ramsurrun, notre chef, notre leader, notre gourou, va vers ses 4 fois 20 ans. 4 jeunesses. Et donc nous espérons que cela sera l'occasion pour que les plus jeunes que nous viennent nous donner un coup de main. Nous sommes très heureux de vous avoir parmi nous, M. Ramsurrun. Vous avez beaucoup fait pour ce pays, et nous espérons que vous allez continuer. J'ai entendu parler du professeur Prakash pour la première fois, j'avais à peu près une quinzaine d'années. À cette époque, mon univers, c'était ma communauté, un point c'est tout. Et j'ai eu de la chance d'avoir comme camarades de jeunesse des élèves du Collège Royal de Curepipe. Donc, des camarades plus intelligents que moi, qui ne se gênaient pas pour se moquer de moi, qui n'avaient pu que aller au Collège Saint-Esprit. Et dans leur conversation, je leur entendais dire toujours le plus grand bien du professeur Prakash. À cette époque-là, je ne pouvais pas savoir plus, mais enfin, en écoutant leur conversation, je comprenais que c'était un professeur de langue, de culture indienne, qui leur ouvrait des grandes fenêtres, des grandes portes vers une autre culture, une autre richesse. Et j'ai eu l'intelligence de comprendre, d'abord ne pas en vouloir à mes parents qui m'avaient un peu en quelque sorte refermé dans une seule communauté, dans une seule culture. Et là, c'était une porte, une fenêtre qui s'ouvrait. Je ne l'ai jamais refermée et je ne l'ai jamais regretté. Et mes recherches dans l'histoire de Maurice, à travers le journalisme, a toujours approfondi en moi cette certitude, cette conviction. Les cultures ne s'opposent jamais. Les hommes qui ne comprennent pas cette culture, parfois se croient devoir s'opposer les uns les autres. Mais la culture ne s'oppose jamais, parce qu'elles vont toutes dans une direction, la même direction, l'épanouissement, le bonheur du genre humain. Celui qui a écrit « East is East and West is West » est un parfait imbécile. Nous avons la chance de vivre dans un pays Maurice où nous savons, mais alors grâce au professeur Prakash en particulier, que l'Est peut rejoindre l'Ouest. Non seulement se rejoindre, s'harmoniser, se donner une accolade. L'Himalaya et le Mont Blanc qui se mettent ensemble pour le bonheur de l'humanité. Grande leçon. Le professeur Prakash, malheureusement, n'est plus de ce monde. Mais cet enseignement qui a ouvert les yeux de toute une jeunesse, et pas seulement d'origine indienne, peut-être pas toujours bien compris dans ses premières années à Maurice, pour des raisons qu'il n'est pas nécessaire de rappeler, parce que le sectarisme, c'est vraiment une calamité. Nous sommes faits pour vivre l'esprit ouvert, les yeux ouverts, pas les yeux fermés. Grâce à ce numéro de Indradhanush, la pensée de Prakash ressuscite, reprend une nouvelle dimension. Aujourd'hui, grâce à ce numéro, tous ceux qui auront l'intelligence d'abord d'acheter ce numéro, ensuite de le lire, de le méditer, pourra s'inspirer de l'enseignement du professeur Prakash. C'est une véritable résurrection pour notre pays. M. Ramsurrun a fait son travail au prix de beaucoup de fatigue dont il paye le prix peut-être aujourd'hui. Il a produit ce numéro sur Prakash. Sa fille, son gendre ont accepté ce projet, cette initiative. Le numéro va être présenté dans quelques instants par notre ami, le ministre Chouni. Mais votre travail commence. Il ne faut pas croire que nous sommes venus ici simplement pour écouter des discours, manger quelques gâteaux, après partir chez nous. Nous sommes ici pour prendre notre part de travail, prendre notre part de responsabilité, de mission. Tout à l'heure, nous avons parlé de, c'est Shakuntala qui a parlé de pierres précieuses, de bijoux. Effectivement, cette pensée de Prakash est un diamant à l'état brut. Quand nous arrivons devant la vitrine d'une bijouterie et qu'on regarde tous ces bijoux-là, on est pris de faiblesse, de tremblement. On se dit, si je regarde le prix de ça, peut-être qu'il y a une syncope qui ne relève moins. Hein? Mais le diamant qui est la pensée, l'enseignement, la vie, l'œuvre de Prakash, il n'y a pas besoin d'argent pour acquérir cela. Il faut de la bonne volonté, il faut l'intelligence, le vouloir de s'identifier, hein, d'adhérer à cette pensée. C'est à notre portée. Nous sommes ici quelques centaines de personnes. Si chacun de nous repartons de ce centre culturel Indira, Gandhi pour la culture indienne, si nous sortons de ce lieu avec la ferme résolution de faire quelque chose pour diffuser ce numéro de Indradhanush sur la pensée, la vie, l'œuvre de Prakash, le faire connaître autour de nous, à nos amis. Si vous, parmi l'assistance, il y en a qui ont des responsabilités dans le domaine éducatif, surtout qui connaissent des maîtres d'école, des recteurs, il faut transmettre le message. Voilà un travail qui doit figurer dans toutes les bibliothèques scolaires de Maurice. Chaque fois que je vais rendre visite à Pahlad Ramsurrun, mon cœur saigne. Pas parce qu'il me reçoit mal, non. Au contraire. Mais parce que je vois sur son placard, ses armoires, des tas de piles de Indradhanush des invendus. Elles arrivent. Nous avons des diamants, nous allons fourrer ça dans un coffre-fort. Non. Tout ça doit être à la portée du public, à la portée de nos élèves, à la portée de nos professeurs, de leurs professeurs. Hein? Si vous êtes dans des clubs sociaux, s'il y a parmi vous des chefs d'entreprise, quel plus beau cadeau de fin d'année qu'une collection complète des numéros d'Indradhanush à vos meilleurs employés. Chez moi, j'ai cette collection-là. Ceux qui me rendent visite, quand ils regardent ça, ils ne croient pas leurs yeux. Je dis, mais vous ne lisez pas les journaux, vous ne voyez pas que tous les... Oui, j'ai vu, mais je n'ai pas pensé à acheter. Ah bon? On vous offre un trésor, un diamant, et vous ne pensez pas l'accepter. Allez, il faut se réveiller là. Hein? Donc, vous avez un travail, vous êtes venus pour ça aujourd'hui. Nous comptons sur vous pour diffuser tout ce travail de Indradhanush et en particulier ce numéro extraordinaire sur la vie et l'œuvre de Prakash. Ce professeur Prakash, vraiment, il a droit à tous nos applaudissements. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Iva Martial. We have in our midst Mr. Sarat Lala, CEO of Mauritius Telecom, the President of Arya Sabha, Mr. Balchan Tanaku, the Director General of MGI, Mr. Vijay Madhu. On behalf of ISP, we welcome you to have in our midst Justice Dhiraj Sital Singh, former Solicitor General and Judge of the Supreme Court. Justice Sital Singh is presently the Chairman of the Human Rights Commission, and as you already know, he happens to be the son-in-law of Professor Prakash. Please join me in a round of applause as I invite him for his address.
Your Excellency, Shri Anup Bhugal, Mr. Pahlad Ramsurrun, and members of the Indradhanush Sanskrit Parishad, distinguished guests and friends. On behalf of the Prakash family, his daughters Sarita and Meenakshi, his sons-in-law and 6 grandchildren, as well as 7 great-grandchildren, may I thank the Indradhanush Sanskrit Parishad, its committee and members, especially Dr. Ramsurrun, for publishing this commemorative magazine, and also the Honorable Minister, His Excellency the High Commissioner, and you, ladies and gentlemen, for honoring us with your presence this morning. We have to thank the previous speakers who made very beautiful and profound speeches on the contribution of Professor Prakash. As you know, mothers-in-law adore their sons-in-law because they gain a son. And my mother-in-law, Rupsuda Prakash, she adored me. But fathers-in-law, they look a little bit with suspicion on the men who take away their darling daughter. And I am in that position. So it's a little bit embarrassing sometimes to sing the praise of one's father-in-law. Therefore, I shall speak perhaps from 2 angles. From the angle of human rights and as a student of Professor Prakash at the Royal College. And I salute here the presence of numerous former students. I see Sarat Lala, Rajesh Bawan, Ashok Modi, Hansraj Mayaram, Likraz Burton, and I believe Dr. Arvind Paltan too, who is the son of Rajman Paltan, who was one of the very close friends of Professor Prakash, as well as Mrs. Paltan, who is here today. You know, the years after the Second World War were eventful years. It was the era of decolonization, and we know that the Indian subcontinent discovered freedom in 1947 after a long battle. And the year 1948 also witnessed the birth of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at the United Nations, which proclaimed that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Human rights are those civil and political rights that are protected in our Constitution, as well as economic, social and cultural rights, which are part of our welfare state. The Universal Declaration gave recognition to cultural rights, and that was perhaps for the first time that cultural rights were given that importance, and proclaimed that everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community. Culture, as we know, is the foundation of civilization. It cuts across the division between rich and poor. And in 1948, the scene in Mauritius was also changing. The general elections in that year saw the beginning of universal suffrage. As you know, in the past, you had to own a property to be able to vote. And that was the beginning of the introduction of a literacy test instead of a property test. And gradually, it came to be acknowledged that people who could sign their name, even if it was in Hindi, should be allowed to vote. And in the 1948 election, the representatives of the workers, among whom Shivsagar Rambulam, a born leader, won the majority of seats. It is in that context that in 1949, Professor Prakash, then only 30 years old, came to Mauritius to promote education and culture. His mission, as it has been well described, was to help to create this awareness of social and cultural rights, more especially among the migrants who had been uprooted from the Indian subcontinent. And this increase in the awareness of cultural rights also increased the consciousness of civil and political rights, which enabled Mauritians to shape their own destiny and to march towards independence. You will recall, especially in our childhood, that we used to celebrate the 15th of August, and that was the annual anniversary of the independence of India. And it is with that spirit in mind that we also marched on the road towards independence. So the immense contribution, as it has been said, of Professor Prakash was to reinstill in the Indian diaspora the value of culture. He promoted the teaching of Oriental languages in a colony where education had been centered on Western culture and civilization. In constant contact with his students, whether the Teachers Training College, as described by Mr. Matabadal, or at the Royal Colleges, for a span of 30 years, Professor Prakash taught the values of freedom, dignity, and responsibility. And education was then the main engine to help people regain dignity, to show the value of one's culture and traditions, and at the same time to help build a Mauritian nation while preserving one's cultural identity. Professor Prakash was a real guru. He taught with love and devotion. He encouraged his students to reach for the top. At the Royal College, he spoke to us not only of the Mahabharata, of Gita, of Rabindranath Tagore, of Pandit Radhakrishnan, of Iqbal, of Tiruvalluvar, but also opened our eyes to the poetry of T.S. Eliot, to the works of Confucius, to the work of Lin Yutang, a Chinese Christian who wrote on the wisdom of India and China. Also of Goethe, of Henry Walden Thoreau, the American writer who influenced the political thoughts and actions of Gandhi on civil disobedience, and Albert Schweitzer was one of the harshest critics of colonialism. He read French. So Marshall would be glad to do that. He did read French and was familiar with the works of Robert Edward Hart, whom he met for some time. When the rector at Royal College promoted extracurricular activities in the 60s, he encouraged senior students to set up the Indian Cultural Society. When questioned about non-violence, which Mahatma Gandhi had advocated in India, he used to tell us that it did not mean that we did not have to fight for our rights. He had this pleasant, booming voice and merry laughter, which we still remember. Rajesh Bhawan reminded me that he used to say how to improve one's voice. One should practice speaking loudly next to a flowing river, and this is how you cultivate a good voice. And Mr. Chulia, I'm sure, knows about this. His car was always full of his own books by authors like Aurobindo, who wrote on abstruse matters like integral yoga in the Life Divine. And he would lend his books freely to students in those days when there was no internet available. He spoke of the poetry of Tagore in Gitanjali and reminded us of these words, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the word has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. And he reminded us of these words, that the worst thing to fear is fear itself, and in life one should never be afraid. And that was words also taken up by Franklin Roosevelt at the eve of the Second World War. Apart from his formal teaching activities, he would also meet with the founders of Triveni, amongst whom Shakya Jagat Singh, as it has been mentioned, Mr. Palton, Basdev Jalnath Singh, and many others. And he would also meet with people like Sir Rampasad Niranjan, Sir Abdul Rahman Osman, amongst others, to talk generally about culture. And was a good friend of Professor Jagesal's cousin as well. After his retirement in his homeland at the early age of 60 in 1978, he still felt passionately about culture. He read avidly the works of Professor Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize winner, and was very much amused by his book, The Argumentative Indian. On a lighter note, he admired Madhuri Dixit for her dancing talent and would have been very pleased to know that she is going to be coming to Mauritius for Diwali. And he was an all-rounder, and he would still go swimming in the lake on the outskirts of Delhi. He loved children, and when walking on the beach would meet youngsters and chat to them about nature, about his likes and dislikes. May I end also by recalling something very important that he taught us, and that's also in the work of Professor Amartya Sen about identity and violence, that every man is his own best friend and his worst enemy, and that everything that we do will affect our life for evil and for good. And once more, to end, may we extend our gratitude for this function, more especially to Mr. Pahlad Ramsurrun, who, as it has been said, has not been too well this week, but made it a point to attend this function. Thank you for your attention.
A genuine recollection of Mr. Prakash. Now I invite His Excellency Shri Anup Kumar Mudgal.
Honorable Minister, sir. Guruji Ramsurrun ji, Mr. Marshal, Justice Sheetal Singh ji, distinguished friends, ladies and gentlemen, it will probably in this gathering I am the one who is least prepared to talk about such a personality as Professor Prakash. I did read a bit about him, and I very carefully listened to other speakers. I think today is the day when I wanted to listen and not speak. सुनने को मन कर रहा था, बोलने से मन डर रहा था. In this gathering, in fact, I see tremendous scholarship, and each one of you would qualify to be my own guru on this subject. प्रोफेसर साहब तो गुरुओं के गुरु थे, उनके बारे में मैं क्या बात कर पाऊंगा. आज मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरे शब्द और सोच दोनों कम पड़ेंगे, उन तक पहुंच नहीं पाएंगे. Nevertheless, जो मैंने सुना उसको अपने शब्दों में कुछ कहने की कोशिश करता. आज मैं यहां देख रहा हूं, in fact, when we talk about Mauritius and India, we see so many bridges over history that connect us. Many of those bridges are sitting today here. And I think Professor Ramsurrun would be counted amongst the strongest of the bridges that connect our two people. अभी उनके बारे में सुना, एक शब्द, एक एक्सप्रेशन का इस्तेमाल हुआ. He was a towering personality. Now, this is an expression which I always listen to very, very carefully, because for me, going higher and higher becomes a force to unite. In fact, I still remember I was in a class for my mid-career training program, and we had an astronaut sitting there. And we asked him, we said, please tell me, when you're up in this space and when you look at the earth, what comes to your mind? He said, there are two things which come to my mind. One is, I look at the earth as one. I am not able to see the differences. I think that is when you go up. Up means not only physically up, but when you go up in scholarly capabilities, you start seeing the humanity as one. And that is what applies to the towering personalities like Professor Ramsurrun. No wonder in one breath he could talk about Iqbal, he could talk about Eliot, he could talk about Tagore, he could talk about Aurobindo. He could be a professor of Hindi, but still was a scholar of Urdu, knew Tamil, could read French. You see, the towering personalities are able to bring people together. They are able to see that unity in the beauty of diversity, because they know unity doesn't mean uniformity and the diversity doesn't mean division. And that is the lesson which scholars like Professor Ramsurrun can carry to their students. In fact, I think very few would be able to ask this question: was the place better before you came? Now that's a great test. I just heard now about this. In fact, for last 2 days I have been talking about Mahatma Gandhi, and I have been talking about his talisman, how you test your own judgment and test it against my talisman. And we all know what Mahatma Gandhi's talisman was. And here I see another talisman today. Professor Prakash talisman, and that is, ask yourself this question: was the place really better before you came? And if the answer is yes, please sit down and ask yourself, what have you done that the place is not better after you came? I think people like Professor Prakash, when they ask this question, then they're trying their best to make sure that the place becomes better after they came. And I think that is what happened in Mauritius. His presence added to the beauty of this place. And believe me, we can all see that. In fact, one of my previous speakers talked about Gandhi ji, then Dr. Manilal, and then came to Professor Ramsurrun. I think all these scholars added to the beauty of this place. And I think we owe them a big gratitude. And this gratitude will come in the form of the publication which is going to be introduced today. I am sure with that book, next time when I come to talk about him, I would not say that sorry I didn't know him. I already know him, and I think after this meeting, listening to other scholars, I think I should admit I will be going back today as a better person. With these words, I thank you very much.
His Excellency Shri Mukul, distinguished guests, last but not least, I now request Honorable Mukeshwar Chuni, Minister of Arts and Culture, to address this august assembly. ISP appreciates the constant support and collaboration his ministry provides to the organization of its various literary activities.
I have a problem with my voice. It's getting stereo gradually. Because it's not that we have started the campaign, but we have at least to meet our people and convince them then when you don't have a mic or any other technological facility to do so. So ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, Excellency, and Srimati Mukdal, Professor Pahlad Ramsurrun, the chairman of ISP, chief editor, his collaborators, the deputy chairperson of associate editor of Indradhanush, Mr. Ivo Marshall, Chief Justice, and Srimati Siddhal Singhji, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed honored now that justice has been done to all the languages in which the Triennial magazine appears. I think I can speak in English, because else I would have had to speak in Hindi. Anyway, being the last speaker is the most difficult job. I am in front of people who know more than me, and of course, people from the dais and outside, from the hall, who have spoken so much about Sri Pahlad and of course, Professor Prakash, that I find myself very embarrassed, in a very embarrassing situation now at this hour to speak on such an important personality. I want to do justice to him. Justice has already been done through the various interventions. Ladies and gentlemen, you're asking me to climb a ladder which is inclined towards me. It's too difficult. However, I would like to share that even I have been a student of his. Strange, isn't it? I was never the TTC, definitely. But I was in my early school days at the Royal College, Port Louis, where every Tuesday in the afternoon we had activities period. My voice is already. we had activities period. And during the activities period, it was Professor Prakash who came to our school to teach us Indian culture. In my first few years, and then later, I think it was Mr. Nanlal who came. Ishwata Nanlal? Yes. He was the one who came later as well. So just to tell you, we are imbibed with a dose of culture which we cannot forget. That's why the greatness of such personalities have to be celebrated. And today, I'm proud that the team at Indradhanush has thought of having a special magazine dedicated to Professor Prakash. Congratulations. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Prakash, he brought to us, and I was willing to confirm with Guruji, a song, but we couldn't confirm it. I need your support to complete one verse of the song. Are you all alive? Yeah. To complete one verse of a song. And it goes like this. हम लाए हैं भारत से संस्कृति निकाल के, उसके बाद क्या आता है मेरे को पता नहीं.
देश को रखना मेरे बच्चों संभाल,
इस देश में रखना मेरे बच्चों संभाल के. So beautiful. He brought Bharatiya Sanskriti to this country and he requested us to save it, keep it alive, keep it kicking, keep propagating it. This is what he said. And as a true architect, I believe he succeeded. After having trained so many teachers, generations of teachers, having interacted and lived with so many personalities dealing with language, culture of different traits, having written so many articles in magazines, in journals, in papers, having contributed so much, he did his bit, his might, his contribution was great. Now it's our turn. How do we save it? Though Mr. Marshall did not really speak today as a journalist, nor am I intending to speak as a politician, but as a representative of the government. I think I have to just highlight some of the activities that were really those activities that got this country geared to Indianness, Indian culture, Indian Sanskriti, Indian parampara, Indian languages. Just imagine had he not been. He was one of the pillars, right? So many others. But who was the one who wanted or who succeeded in having the second World Hindi Conference in Mauritius in the early 1970s? 1975. 76. He was the one who convinced Chacha Ramgulam first to go and attend the first World Hindi Conference in India, and the second one was held in Mauritius. Is that not history? Can we forget that? That was one. His introduction of the simple books, Naveen Hindi. I still recall. I couldn't. It's a pity, those days competition, they want you to become a scholar and go to Royal College Board, occupy. And we couldn't learn the language as such. We couldn't devote that much of time to linguistic teaching and culture and all. So I missed it. I couldn't learn Hindi, but I still recall the book, so colorful, so beautifully presented. Hindi, Naveen Hindi, Bhag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 और 6. And that was adapted in so many other curricula, in other languages, and it was his creation. How great. Today, Excellency, if Mauritius has the World Hindi Secretariat here, if Mauritius has a Hindi-speaking union here in this country, along with so many other speaking, I got 12. I know them by heart. I don't want to repeat them. All falling under my ministry. if we have a President's Fund for creative writing, if we have so many facilities, you remember, Guruji, you recall, you told me that, कि जब पहले हम जाते थे बैठकों में पढ़ाने तो 50 रुपया मिलता था, 30 रुपया मिलता, मेरे पिताजी को भी 30 रुपया मिलता था। आज अरे वाह, बधाई हो, मैं पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन बधाई हो कि आज 30 रुपया से आज 2000 रुपये तक मिलता है, 2500 रुपये मिलता है। क्यों? इसलिए कि सरकार के दिल के अंदर पहचान है कि हाँ, इन भाषाओं को बचा कर रखना है, इस संस्कृति को बचा कर रखना है, क्योंकि भाषा गई तो संस्कृति गई, संस्कृति गई तो हम गए। और कौन चाहता कि हम चले, हम गए? कौन चाहता है? सबको यही चाहते हैं ना कि हम रहें इस देश में, लेकिन इस तरह से रहें जैसे कि हमें जो भी सुविधा सरकार दी है वो बचा कर रखें और मजबूत बनाए, लेकिन खोए नहीं, खोना नहीं है, बचा कर रखना है। और पूरा सहयोग जो सरकार की तरफ से मिल सकता है वो मिलता रहेगा और मिलेगा, इन्फ्लेशन के माध्यम से, हर बजट के माध्यम से 10% इंक्रीज तो होता ही रहेगा, लेकिन ये सुविधाएं बंद नहीं होंगी कभी। ये इस देश के अंदर जो लोग बसे हैं ये कभी नहीं मानेंगे कि ये सारे सुविधा हमको छोड़ कर जाए। आपके फेडरेशन के माध्यम से, कल्चरल सेंटर्स के माध्यम से, स्पीकिंग यूनियन के माध्यम से सब कुछ हम मजबूत कर रहे हैं। एक्सेलेंसी, Mauritius wishes again to inform you that we are the ones who will voice at the UN along with you to say that Hindi language should get the status it deserves at the UN in the international arena. Congratulate Mauritius, and of course India will be there. Launched the magazine. I am really honored, touched deeply by this gesture from Indradhanush and his team. I thank you for having invited me and having given me this unique honor to say thank you to one of my teachers, though for a very short time, but one of my teachers who made me a better human being. Thank you very much.
Do you have your permission? Yes, definitely. Thank you. Orthopedic and plastic surgeon to give words of thanks.
Young lady is using guillotine on me, asking me to curtail my speech completely, remaining with only 2 words, that is, thank you. Thank you for attending this function. It has been great. A great work has been done by our Guruji for launching this today's magazine, and a lot of work has been put in by all the contributors. So before requesting you for refreshment, I would like to offer something to Mr. Sital Singh.
And I'm sorry I'm back. I just would like to inform you that it is Dr. Chanu himself who has sketched this portrait of Professor Prakash, and all the other eminent personalities on your right, okay? He himself has sketched these. Go ahead, Dr. Chanu.
don't think this would be for your office.